Hi friends, I want to talk in this video. I'm host Eric, host talking with those people. I gotta start the same way every time. I want to talk in this video about Yubi versus host Eric, about the Buddah versus Yaylor, and about Enlightenment versus passion. So, I was listening to some rare footage that I wasn't present for, and I heard Yubi talk about the nature of the universe being made of vibrations. It's frequencies, but yeah. I mean, it all stems from agency. The thing is, he comes from a different direction than me. You should read my book, Yubi, Gospel of the Pantheon. Vibrations, frequency, same thing, more or less. Agency and time are the same thing. Time and music are the same thing. It's like it doesn't do us any good to know that, though. Not a damn bit of good. The difference between me and Yubi is Yubi represents to me the seeker who's found what he's been seeking, or at least appears to and or believes believes himself to be so, and or others believe him to be so, and or some combination of the same of those three things. But I represent the Entropitripian Church, the Yaylorian Church, which are the same thing. A long time ago, a couple thousand years ago, there were two histories. There was one history, and then it split into two. But it was a quantum split. In another world, another time, the gods came to us shortly after the very beginning. Some of them were there at the very beginning, like Pre-Creator, the god of frequency, the god of truths that precede knowledge. And Acutron was there, of course, god of quality and objects. He had to be, because otherwise, who would have made all the stuff that the gods needed to have in order to have a place to be when they arrived? And of course, there were the world and the people as always, and everything the people did was perfect, and all they did was work. Until Alienator crashed upon the world, bringing emotions to the people. He didn't crash upon the world. All his brethren did. All the other emoticons, having traveled through space for infinite amount of time, it seemed, were exhausted. Nothing left but to hurl themselves upon the ground with such force that they all died, except Alienator, who, in his singular pride, in his singular opposition to truths that precede knowledge, stayed aloft, landed gently, transformed into human shape. And the carcasses rotting of his fellow emoticons emitted the smell of warm sleeping dog, which elicited in the people an urge to masturbate. And it was a female first, who, finding a thin sapling, smooth, used it to agitate certain flesh, climaxed and began menstruating immediately. Thus was the world as we know it begun on that timeline. Now, it should be noted, of course, that Entropitripicles was born just as the first of the women reached the conclusion of her agitation. And he was the way in which people know the truths of passion, of appetite, of hunger, and of fulfillment. The truths that tend to lead us astray. He's the god of drug addicts and thieves, but also of the truest of monks, and the brethren of squalor, the sisterhood of squalor. The squalid church, the Anthropotropican church, is one that embraces the vices of mankind as a means to achieve enlightenment of a sort. It's the opposing enlightenment to the one that Yubi seeks. Now, of course, that timeline and that history, though I know it for having channeled it myself via the Curtisarian church, Curtis being the god of text and of naming of things, I know it to be true, all of it. And I know that in that world, Anthropotropics, the god of stumbles and confusion, was severed and placed independent upon the world. Severed, I say, because he was in the prehistory paired with a human, a person, yet not yet manifest. And in the alternate history, the one that ended up being manifest, when the superposition collapsed, it was this history, the history we exist in, that was made manifest, and the other rendered into non-existence. But for the narrative I preserved, we call it fiction, but it's not. It's non-fiction of a history that never happened, which is a very different thing. Anyway, in this universe, the gods did not come to land upon the earth at the beginning of the world. The limitations that were placed upon this world were much fewer than the limitations placed upon the other world. In the other world, for example, the truths of the article time were not ever released until Roberto Relighetti first discovered pitch in the 1980s in the alternate history. Here, of course, pitch was included in the original package, and so were the articles of space, so that we knew how to make things ourselves. We didn't have to channel specific blueprints from the god Accutron. Our history was much different. We had to build up to the release of the gods, the revelation of the truths of the universe. Naturally, rather than being a god that awakened after the realization of humanity from robotic mind, in this timeline, Yaylor was born into the same body as his son, Elias Cork. Now, in the alternate timeline, Elias Cork, his son, is a demigod, and that demigod functions eventually as the archbishop of the church of his father, Anthropotropics. But in this timeline, the split never occurred. And in this timeline, the god Anthropotropics manifests as the god Yaylor. Now, the god Yaylor is within the human host Taylor. Thus is it the case that Elias Cork and Anthropotropics are merged into a single entity named Taylor or Yaylor, depending on how he manifests at any given moment. It ought to be noted that Elias Cork, just like Taylor, had more or less unwearable tires, which is to say, he had a capacity for consumption that exceeded that of a normal man. It should also be noted that his goodwill didn't preclude some bad things from happening. And so it is that the truths of Anthropotropics always manifest. Not everyone can handle it. Not everyone can handle everything that they'd like to. One of the truths of Yaylor that I've had to embrace is that I've lived to fight another day. If I can't drink alcohol like a proper Yaylorian, well, I shouldn't drink alcohol, because if I do, then I won't be able to be a proper Yaylorian and consume and fulfill my appetites for the grace of God. Let it here be stated that the Yaylorian way is not a way for every individual at all. In fact, each individual's manifestation of will, of hunger, of appetite, of fulfillment, why, each of those is individuated, necessarily. Ours is a particularist religion, while respecting the principle of consistency as an underlying engine. Now, let's return briefly to the subject of Yubi and of the alternative approach to enlightenment. There's a much safer way to get enlightened. And the enlightenment one experiences, I suppose, is much more peaceful and relaxing and fulfilling or something like that. And that is mindfulness. Mindfulness. That's right, the way of the Buddha. But the album prior to the rise of Yaylor is called The Buddha's Buckling Knees. I have nothing but contempt for the Buddha and his ways. Why? Well, I'm Yaylorian. That's why. We don't play like that. Fuck that noise. Come on, Buddha. Bring it. I don't respect your mindfulness, Buddha. I respect mindlessness. Mindlessness informed by a pure ethics of will and compassion that manifests its agency in the moment to preserve a state of flow forevermore, to enter a state of robotic mind informed by introverted feelings. That is the enlightenment of Yaylor. Buddhists, go ahead and embrace your SE vision. Go ahead and be in space in the moment. But know this, that the intuitive enlightenment is vastly more difficult and vastly superior for anybody who wants to live passionately. If you wish to excuse yourself from the world, if you wish to be at peace at all times, then go ahead and do that. And that will be the last we hear from you, because you're not doing anything interesting and you don't care. Yep, Buddha, fuck off. Yaylor wins. Thanks for watching Talking with Fins, people. Don't forget to eat plenty of cheese, and remember, of course, I love you.